if the virus had not happened. The US economy was booming. This election would have been a shoo-in for him.
I think Trump, in a sense, blew an opportunity because his strong point, which has been the economy prior to the pandemic kicking in,
and the last presidential debate today. Remember, there were supposed to be 3 debates. The second one got cancelled because Trump got, because there were concerns about the COVID spread and they wanted to sort of do it remotely, and Trump refused to do it virtually. And joining me today, of course, is Meera Shankar, who served as India's ambassador to the United States between 2009 and 2011, and Pramit Palchaudhuri, the consulting editor at Hindustan Times. Let me start with you, Pramit. After the final debate, do you believe any minds were changed?
Trump has been advised on two potential strategies to win this election. One is to focus on that roughly 40% of the US elect voter base that is completely committed to him, the Make America Great Again crowd. These are the ones who come out in the rallies. But that 42% is not enough to win the election. But if he can turn them out in much larger numbers than, let's say, the base of the Democratic Party, then potentially he could still win, because a large number of them often skip elections. If he can get 100% turnout for this crowd, then that will give him a huge boost, especially in so-called battleground states where they are in unusually large numbers. But the other strategy is to look at the fact that a lot of moderate Republicans or independent voters who are conservative in terms of their policies, like Trump's policies, whether on immigration, on healthcare, and I've been particularly happy with his policies on the economy, at least with pre-COVID-19. But this group does not like Trump as a person. They don't like his misogyny. They don't like his aggressiveness, and the fact that he's often, as we all know, very unpresidential in his behavior. So they've been torn. Do we vote for the man's policies, or do we vote for the man? So in the second strategy was, well, if you try to look and act more presidential, maybe you could win these people over. I would say the first debate was an attempt to reach out to his base, get them excited, go after the jugular, and throw off Biden, show him to be as to be aggressive to the Democrats as possibly can.
Right.
The second debate, the final debate, you saw him becoming more presidential. They actually debated climate, race, immigration, actual policy. So you had a sense of what the president had in mind in his second term.
Who won this round, according to you?
Well, I think most of the Twitter world and the Twitterati are saying it's actually the moderator who won this round, because she managed to keep both candidates under control. 3 quick polls by CNN and 2 others said that Biden had won it. The Trump supporters say that Trump has won it. So, it's like reinforcing existing opinions. I don't know to what extent it served Trump's purpose in swinging the voters who were undecided. Firstly, in this election, a large number of the voters have already made up their minds. So the number of undecided voters is relatively small. About 45 million people have already cast their votes, by mail-in ballots or advance voting. So, the number of undecideds is relatively small. And for President Biden in this debate, because he was running ahead of President Trump in the polls by anywhere between 7 to 14 points persistently over the last several months, it was really his to lose. He had to avoid making any gaffes to basically show that he had the presence of mind and the alertness to handle the questioning, and that he knew the details of what he was talking about. And I think in that he succeeded. President Trump was definitely more persuasive than in his first debate, but
Biden, very vastly different approaches on the pandemic and on what they will do in their second term, or what Trump will do in his second term, and Biden will do in his first term as president if they make it to the White House.
The pandemic, I think that is Trump's weakest point, because his handling of the pandemic has been disastrous. To have the leading country in the world have almost the number one in terms of cases and such a large number of deaths, I think that has been something which Trump will find it difficult to ride out. And his approach, even now, is basically to say that things will, we are turning the corner and things will be all right. We'll have a vaccine soon. But he said that in the beginning of the pandemic, it'll go away by Easter, the warmer weather, and the virus will disappear. So he didn't take it seriously enough, even though now we know that his advisors had told him that this is a very serious issue. But he deliberately downplayed it. And he says this is because he didn't want to cause panic. Now, if you actually look at the numbers today, it's clear that the US is in a third wave, because they have over 60,000 cases a day, and over 800 people a day are still dying. So it's pretty serious. Biden says that he will enforce, wearing of masks, and B, that he will have more testing, and if need be, localized lockdowns. But in any case, a safer and more responsible opening up, particularly for schools and businesses, and that he will go by the science on the vaccine. So obviously, this is something where Biden scores in terms of his willingness to look at the practical steps which would help to control the pandemic. And I think Trump, in a sense, blew an opportunity, because he focused so much on personal attacks on Biden and his family, that his strong point, which has been the economy prior to the pandemic kicking in, he didn't really focus or talk about enough. So he blew an opportunity there.
If the virus had not happened, the US economy was booming at that point before the pandemic. His poll ratings are much higher. I would personally believe that this election would have been a shoe-in for him, because I believe at least that the upper Midwestern states, and definitely the entire American South, would have been completely in his pocket, in which case the Electoral College would have been a win, an easy win for him, even if the Democrats had won the national election, the national poll.
40 million people have already voted in the United States, and the recent polls show a very small sliver of the electorate really is persuadable this close to the election.
The question is, as you've correctly said, most people have already decided. However, a large number of Americans are what are called low-frequency voters. In other words, they don't vote in a lot of elections. Simple example: the bellwether state in this election is Pennsylvania. It is an absolute must for Trump to win in this election. And if Biden clinches it, it's probably certain that he will win the election. But
right,
white working class males in Pennsylvania, 2.3 million of them didn't even bother to vote in the last US election in 2016. So, and a total of 4 million Pennsylvanians didn't bother to vote at all in 2016. So what you're really looking at for both parties is either mobilizing your vote, the guys who are not normally coming out to vote, or even trying to keep the other side's vote, potential supporters, at home. And that is the real crux of the so-called unregistered voters or the absentee voters, that a lot of this battle still continues to be very focused on.
Supporting Trump, and these are, of course, viewers from India. Satish Chandra Srivastava, there is Julie Beer. Trump will win again, it seems, she says, and a lot of similar, comments coming in so far. But let me sort of wind up this discussion with some perspective from Meera. Meera, what do you think? Do you agree with what Pramit said, that that people have already made up their minds, but there are still people who are waiting to be persuaded.
I think if you look at the polls in the US, Biden has had a lead in the national polls, as I said, anywhere between 7% to 14%. Right now, the polls are showing him with an 8% lead. That's the
Right,
BBC poll. Real Clear Politics shows about 8.6%. But yes, in the battleground states, the lead is not that large. And in many battleground states, several, like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, even Florida, the numbers have swung. Sometimes you'll see Biden with a 6 point lead, next you see him with a 2% point lead, or even less. So I think in some of these battleground states, Pennsylvania being one, the election is still relatively open. And the Democrats themselves are worried about being too complacent. And
okay,
there are people who say that, they are Trump shy voters, means people who feel embarrassed to say in public that they support Trump, who might become a hidden factor in this election. But I think we have to wait and see. But overall, the picture appears more steady for Biden than it appeared for Hillary, because even these allegations that have cropped up, which Trump and Rudy Giuliani have been putting forward, haven't
right,
found that kind of public traction as the email issue did with Hillary, with the FBI director coming in and announcing on the eve of
right.
election that he's conducting an investigation. So I think the scenarios are slightly different, but going by what happened in the last polls, everybody is a bit wary of making definitive predictions.